And welcome up to the second floor of the Duncan Student Center for episode number 6 of Shamrock Sports on the school year. Alongside my good friend Ryan Murphy, I'm Tyler Reed. So glad you could join us here today. And Murph, we turn the page to October. It certainly feels like it outside. Let's have some fun.
Absolutely does. We were talking before the show, the permacloud making its first appearance of the year outside. Fall sports season in full swing and hockey season starting tonight. We both love the sound of that. Should be a good show.
Yeah, the emotional scarring, whatever you want to call it, begins for the two of us as the Notre Dame hockey team takes the ice. A lot more on that. Their matchup coming up this evening against the United States National Team Development Program coming up in a bit. But first, let's go to Caitlin Klein with your Friday headlines around the world of Notre Dame sports.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Klein, and here are your Friday headlines. On Wednesday evening, Notre Dame football got some bad news as class of 2025 quarterback commit Deuce Knight decommitted from the program. After months of speculation, Knight finally made it official that he would be flipping to Auburn, delivering a recruiting win for Hugh Freeze and the Tigers. Knight was a fringe 5-star quarterback and the highest-rated player in Notre Dame's 2025 class. Men's soccer had a big win Tuesday night against Trine, winning 7-1 at our very own Alumni Stadium. KK Before and Ian Shaw each scored their first goals, with Nico Bartlett scoring the first of his career. After this win, the Irish have improved to 4-0 in the all-time series. The women's soccer team kicks off against Syracuse at the Syracuse Soccer Stadium at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Notre Dame has never lost a game to Syracuse except for a tie in 2016. The Irish enter the match ranked number 16 in the nation. Syracuse is 6-1 so far this year. The volleyball team is coming off of a 1-1 weekend against number 3 Stanford and Cal in the ACC opening weekend at home. Coming up tonight at 6:30, the Irish face off against Georgia Tech in Purcell Pavilion and the Clemson Orange on Sunday at 1 p.m. After an exciting win this past weekend against Louisville, football has a much-needed break this weekend while they prepare for next Saturday's game against the Stanford Cardinals. In the meantime, hockey is getting its start to the season tonight with their exhibition against the U.S. National Team Development Program. Make sure not to miss the Student Fan Fest on the lawn outside of Compton Family Ice Arena from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. before the puck drop at 7:05 p.m. With 19 returning players and 10 new faces on the team, this should be the start of a great season. That's all for today's Friday headlines. I'm Caitlin Klein, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. No football game this week, no problem. Still a lot to follow heading into the weekend regarding Notre Dame athletics. And for the two of us, you know what that means. It's time for Hockey Night in South Bend. First time since the middle of February, senior night. Hockey returns to Compton Family Ice Arena in a competitive setting. And, boy, we've got some storylines to talk through to start off this 24-25 season. You called it a year of beginnings and endings, and I think that all starts with Jeff Jackson knowingly entering this as his final head coaching season at Notre Dame, 20th and final.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he announced this in July. So we're not exactly hitting on old news because it will be important and will have great implications on this team's season. It was very apparent in July when he announced it. He didn't want to really talk about it during the season. He wanted to get out of the way with, not have it be the main storyline. But there's no way of denying that this is going to have an impact on the team. When they came out in their Monday media availability, that's what they talked about. Tyler Carpenter and Justin Janicki said, hey, we're going to use this as motivation for our season ahead. I don't see how it doesn't have any implications on the team.
Brock Sheehan, the youngest on the 4-man coaching staff for Notre Dame, is the head coach in waiting as the season begins officially next Friday with a trip to St. Lawrence and Clarkson with the exhibition tonight against the U.S. NTDP. And as you look at the season as a whole and where this team wants to get to in the end, it's a place where they haven't been in a couple of years, not in the 2 years we've been here. The NCAA tournament, back-to-back years of first-round Big Ten tournament exits. That's something the team wants to clean up.
Yeah, I mean, this is a program, and we've kind of had conversations about this off the air, right? But this is a team that's very used to success, right? The gold standard over at the rink, they hold themselves to the end of the season standard, which is making the NCAA tournament. They've made it in 12 of the previous 17 years going into 2 years ago, and then now they've obviously not made it in each of the last 2 seasons. So that's a key thing. I mean, Notre Dame's always holding themselves to the national championship standard. You'll see senior leaders year after year, just as Janicki and Carpenter did on Monday. They're talking about that very openly. We're here to win a national championship, and particularly this year in Jeff Jackson's final season, a little bit of added motivation. But for this Notre Dame team, in a year of resets, and we'll kind of talk about those as the show goes on, right? All the new pieces that are going to come in. It's going to be especially important to set that NCAA tournament as your kind of goal, right? in this year of transition to see whether they can get back to the NCAA tournament would mean a lot for making sure that standard of success continues going forward.
Last season, a rare year below 500 record-wise for Notre Dame hockey. Now, the schedule this year is a very interesting one. A lot of pieces to break down. You start off with an October non-conference slate that is quite a bit easier than what we've seen over the last 2 years. You don't see Denver, Western Michigan, BU like we did 2 years ago and last year. Now it's Clarkson, St. Lawrence, Alaska, and Long Island throughout October. So it's a different look for this team going into Big Ten play as they hope, I would say, to be fresher for the stretch run down the season.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they're going to have to be fresh too, to a certain extent, because we know that the Big Ten slate is always a grind, and it's going to be this year. I mean, you could make the argument that the Big Ten is actually stronger this year than it has been in the previous 2 seasons, if you wanted to, right? And then you add in those trips you're kind of seeing on the schedule here. It's a full slate. You add in the trip to Northern Ireland, the exciting game at the frozen confines of Wrigley Field on January 3rd, and you're all of a sudden you're looking at a lot of kind of shiny objects, for lack of a better term, right? A lot of things that can be distracting between or away from winning games, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't be soaking in those trips, right? But this team's objective is always to win games. And you're going to need that kind of October to get your feet underneath you, which Notre Dame hasn't had. Get your feet underneath you in October. Make sure you're well above 500 going into a challenging but also exciting rest of the season.
Yes, Notre Dame Big Ten slate opens that first week of November against Wisconsin, wraps up with Michigan State at home, and in between those big trips that were a high talking item during Monday's media availability. The players don't want to look at them too much, don't want to focus on them too hard, but man, they're out there. They're going to be great opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at them.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, is there one I guess you're most excited for? I would say I'm probably most excited for Wrigley. I'll be excited to watch the team play over in Northern Ireland. I think it's a very cool trip, especially considering the Irish to Irish connection. But I mean, Wrigley Field, outdoors, maybe some New Jerseys potentially.
It's happened before, and as you look at the Northern Ireland trip as well, I mean, the quality competition you're getting there. Harvard, Merrimack, a BU team that was in the national championship contention and produced the first overall NHL draft pick in Macklin Celebrini, and there's a bye week on the back end of that Belfast trip. So
Big Ten did them a favor with
that. The team's going to have a little bit more time to enjoy themselves up there. But Notre Dame opens the season ranked 19th in the nation and takes on the U.S. NTDP tonight. We'll talk more personnel-wise, X's and O's for this Notre Dame hockey team when we return. But first, we check in with our friends over at ND Sunrise.
Hey Irish, if you want to hear the news from campus this week, watch some exciting segments, or learn about this coming weekend's campus events, make sure to tune in to ND Sunrise, which airs every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on the NDTV YouTube channel.
All right, welcome back to the set here at Shamrock Sports. Tyler Riddy alongside Ryan Murphy as we get into the positional breakdown, and it's a pretty obvious place to start for this Fighting Irish hockey team. A big gaping hole left behind between the pipes as Ryan Bischel, one of the best goaltenders in recent program history, runs out of eligibility, and now Notre Dame's going to have a little bit of a goalie by committee to start off the year. How about that?
Yeah, it's the first kind of goalie battle that we've seen for the Notre Dame crease since 2022, right? Ryan Bischel was a part of that. And obviously that had good results on the season, right? Those goaltenders were pushing each other, and Notre Dame ended up making the national tournament. So as for whether it should be a concern, I don't think there's any reason to speculate that it'll be a concern just yet, but there certainly is a lot to watch for. Notre Dame brought in transfer Owen Say, which as you can see right here, played against Notre Dame last year, kind of caught the Irish's eye, making 50 saves last year in October in a overtime loss. Played pretty well at a pretty solid save percentage last year. He had a .913 save percentage while at Mercyhurst last year, was the full starter, 31 games played for a team that maybe not so great on the defensive side of the puck. But you also have potentially the goaltender of the future in waiting, Nick Kempf, as a freshman coming in this year as well, right? So Notre Dame should have some potential future depth at the position, but who's going to take the reins is the real question.
Yeah, Say just a junior, Kempf, the freshman, a draft pick of the Washington Capitals. The primary competition we expect will be between those two, but Jack Williams, who has been the backup to Ryan Bischel each of the last 2 years, might factor in as well. We'll get a good look at certainly two of them, most likely all three of them, tonight against the NTDP, and we'll also get a sense of how this offense is going to evolve. That's been the big question mark for Notre Dame in these past couple of years without the NCAA tournament runs. The goal scoring just hasn't quite been there. Landon Slaggert emerged last year as the top flight goal scorer with 20, but not enough support around him, and 2 years ago, not a top-flight goal scorer in general, and the Irish have a lot of candidates, whether you look at the seniors, the huge 8-man sophomore class that's littered with NHL draft picks, to become that guy or that group of guys on offense.
Yeah, and I think you just hit the nail on the head with the group of guys. I think Notre Dame's strength this year, if it's going to get back to that 3 goals a game threshold, which we kind of see, and the Notre Dame program is kind of circled as, all right, if we get 3 goals a game, we should be in a pretty good shape for the NCAA tournament. Last time they did that, reached that threshold, they did make the tournament. All depends on the defense as well, right? But I think you're right. It's going to have to be the depth. It's going to have to be a little bit of scoring by committee. But Notre Dame's sophomore class is going to be the group that you're probably going to look at to do that, with Danny Nelson and Cole Knuble, 2 NHL draft picks who kind of got their feet underneath them last year and were major contributors to this team. They're going to be looked at this year as maybe even more of a leadership role when it comes to providing offense. And just looking at Notre Dame's returning goals, they have 49 goals returning on the roster. 31 of them came from that sophomore class, and then 20 of those 31 came in the second half of the season, right? Once those guys got familiarity, weren't freshmen anymore. They'll continue to have that familiarity in their sophomore year. I would expect to see them all to take a little bit of a step this season, and Notre Dame will need that.
Certainly. Knuble and Nelson returned to Notre Dame's 2 20-point scores from a year ago and are joined by a group of transfers. There are, I would say, 3 of them that I really have my eye on to potentially bolster the offensive production a little bit. You have forwards and Ian Murphy from Princeton, as well as the second one, Blake Biondi from Minnesota Duluth, former 17-goal scorer. Murphy's been piling up the goals recently with the Tigers. And then Axel Kumlin, we talked about it, half of his 22 career points coming over from Miami, Ohio on the power play, and that's a group, a special teams unit, that needs some help for Notre Dame. So those 3 transfers, with the addition of Owen Say in goal and Luke Robinson from Air Force, could certainly help the matter.
Absolutely, and I think Notre Dame's going to need to rely on breakout years, right? I think you could say the same thing about the sophomore class, right? No matter how good any of those sophomores are, it'll still be a breakout year for them because they're sophomores, right? You're not going to expect that. Same thing goes for Biondi and Murphy. I think those are the 2 that I'm kind of looking at. Murphy, a guy who was a captain at Princeton, a leader, scored 15 goals his sophomore year with the Tigers. Biondi, 17 goals his sophomore year at Minnesota Duluth. They've proven they can score, right? But Notre Dame is going to need them to kind of get back into that scoring rhythm this year in order to get back to that 3 goals a game threshold. And for Biondi, he's a guy who's battled some injuries, obviously, right? So hearing Jeff Jackson say this week in media availability that he looked like one of the best players in training camp is a really, really encouraging sign for this Notre Dame offense.
An encouraging sign, would you say, if one man can step up and really take the reins, whether it's in goal, whether it's on offense, whether on that blue line for Notre Dame that has 10 different people to sift through positionally, who's your one guy this season that you would say is going to have the biggest impact on the success or failure or staying the same of this Notre Dame team?
I mean, I think we've hit on the goaltending piece.
Right.
And I think the goaltending piece will be sink or swim, right? So I'm not going to return to that. And I think I mentioned that the team's overall strength will be depth. So I'm going to go maybe a little bit down the roster, touch on some things we haven't talked about here. I'm going to look at those senior veterans, really. Justin Janicki, Grant Filinoff coming back. Those guys, Hunter Strand, will be expected to contribute in a big way for Notre Dame. Guy we also haven't touched on, Paul Fisher, defensive prospect, formerly of the St. Louis Blues, now of the Edmonton Oilers. He's going to be asked to step up into a leadership role in this Notre Dame blue line. So all the pieces are going to have to come together for the Irish. I realize I kind of dodged your question about the one player, but give me any one of those 4. I'm going to have my eyes on them because if they're going well, there's a good chance that Notre Dame's depth is going well.
Well, don't you worry. I think our last hockey show in February, you asked me about a Hobie Baker candidate, and I picked like the entire Michigan team, so it's not the first time. Don't worry about it.
It runs in the NDTV family.
Right,
Always sidestepping questions.
Yeah, we dodge the questions. That's what we do. But hey, coming up next, we're going to transfer it over across the parking lot from the rink on over to the pitch and talk some Notre Dame soccer. You're watching Shamrock Sports. Welcome to Shamrock Sports. My name is Tyler Reedy, joined alongside Avery White and Cooper Van Driesch. And hey, we've got a great show on tap today as the anticipation is building with Notre Dame football set to take the field once again tomorrow.
I know. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Notre Dame offensive line comes out.
Check up. Let's go.
That position group will be critical for the Irish.
Hey! That's and one. That's and one.
Hey, I hate to be that guy, but we're kind of in the middle of something here. It's pretty important.
We know you guys want to play too. I mean, we need 3 more.
3 more. Yeah, I've been waiting for this. Come on. All right, welcome back to Shamrock Sports. I'm now joined by Chris Daly, our resident soccer expert, to talk a little bit of Notre Dame action at Alumni Stadium. Both the men's and women's teams are about halfway through their regular seasons and go to Syracuse this weekend to take on the Orange. Let's start with this men's team. College Cup finalist a year ago, currently unranked, maybe not playing up to the potential they wanted, but still, they've got 5 wins on the year. They've won 4 straight, and this offense is really starting to come around with the efforts of Matthew Rue.
Yeah, well, you mentioned 4 straight, and you mentioned Matthew Rue, because if you asked me about, a week and a half ago, 15 days ago, Matthew Rue had 1 goal up to that point through the first 5 games of the season. In the last 4, he has 9 goals, 2 of which are hat tricks and 1 brace. Those hat tricks against Detroit Mercy and against Chicago State. That brace against Division III Trine. So then the question was, can he score against top caliber opposition? And he did exactly that. An 86th-minute winner against the Clemson Tigers, which was just a phenomenal goal. And for Matthew Rue, his confidence is at an all-time high. And it's a confidence that isn't really cocky. It's more just calmness in front of the net. And Coach Riley has talked about that and how he has really developed into such a better player throughout the course of these last 4 games. So for Matthew Rue, he's going to look to keep on doing that as they enter the back 9 of the season.
10 goals on the year for Rue, 7 assists as well for senior midfielder Bryce Bonneau to lead the ACC. Now this team, at least to start the year, has drawn quite a few comparisons to the 2021 College Cup team. Of course, last year's College Cup run was forged by a defensive identity with Brian Dowd in goal, the goalkeeper of the year for Notre Dame in the ACC. Now it's freshman Blake Kelly, and now the team moving into October doesn't have a clean sheet yet this year. Is that something you worry about at all down the stretch with the molding defensive ability of this squad?
I don't think I worry about Blake Kelly as much as just the Irish defensive unit as a whole, just tracking back and staying consistent for 90 minutes, because they go blank for about 30 seconds, and that's the goal, right? The goal against Trine, it was a lapse of concentration, 30 seconds, and then all of a sudden a Division III school puts one by you. And even though they scored a touchdown, 7 goals, it doesn't really matter because you see that 1 goal, and I feel like it is a gray cloud looming over the soccer program right now on the men's side. However, I wouldn't say it's a huge worry. I think Coach Riley is just one of the best coaches in all of college soccer, and he'll figure it out as the season goes along.
No problem with clean sheets on the other side for Notre Dame women's soccer, currently ranked 17th in the nation. They will take on Syracuse in the afternoon on Saturday ahead of the men's matchup. And man, what a start to the year for this freshman group, a historic freshman class for Irish women's soccer. 13 members of the class, and many of them have contributed significantly. How about that group helping them out to this great start?
Yeah, well, 3 of them came late. 3 of them were at the U20 World Cup, but then the one who actually was here the whole time, Izzy Engel, she has 10 goals on the year, is 5th in the country. She has been phenomenal all year round, and the thing about Izzy Engel, they try to play her through the middle. If that's not working, a lot of teams are now game planning around a freshman, Izzy Engel. She'll go out wide, and she uses her pace to really just go up and down the flanks of the pitch, and she has been phenomenal. And that's the thing, too, with this team, right? Coach Norman has really stressed that they don't play exactly one way and one brand of soccer. They kind of do a bit of everything, and if something's not working through the middle, they'll go out wide. If they want to sit back, they can sit back. And that's what makes a great team great. How many different ways of soccer can you play, and can you do so successfully?
Certainly, and we know down the stretch it's going to be tough. The ACC's loaded. You look at programs like Florida State, Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest, all have elite capacities, and Notre Dame is sort of on that level. It's kind of knocking on the door. It's got a couple of big wins this season inside the top 15. Is this the year? What's the potential? What's the ceiling of this group in the postseason?
I don't think there is a ceiling for this group. I think 2 top 15 wins already for such a young team is huge, and the momentum and the confidence that they have from those wins is going to carry them nicely into the postseason. They're only getting better, right? They're so young. Each and every game, that's more, 90 more minutes in the tank, 70 more minutes in the tank. They don't really have much experience, so every game is more experience for them. And as they head into playoffs, I mean, with the way they're playing right now, I don't think there is, much stopping this Notre Dame team.
Plenty of surprises still to come in the college soccer landscape inside the final 2 months, and plenty of surprises in the college football world. For more on that, let's throw it to Kian Baggenstows. Take it away, Kian.
With Notre Dame having their first bye week this week after an electric ranked win over Louisville, it's a good time to reflect on all the craziness that has happened over the season so far. Upon reflecting, I realized that there are a good amount of teams who have shattered expectations and rose up out of nowhere. Let's look at a handful. First up, the 5-0, first time since 1967, and number 23, Indiana Hoosiers. In the past 3 years, they've had 3 consecutive losing seasons. In 2021, they went 2-10. In 2022, they went 4-8. And in 2023, they went 3-9. This offseason, Coach Tom Allen was shown the door after only 2 winning seasons in 7 years. Replacing Coach Allen was Kurt Cagnetti from James Madison. Under him, the Dukes finished number 3 in the FCS poll 3 years in a row. The first year they moved to FBS, the Dukes entered the AP poll a month into the regular season and finished 8-3 overall. The year before Cagnetti went to Indiana, the Dukes finished 11-2. In the young hotshot Cagnetti's first year, Indiana has beaten FIU 31-7, who's a Group of 5 school, FCS school Western Illinois 77-3. Solid Big Ten school UCLA, they beat 42-13 in the Rose Bowl. Demolished American team Charlotte 52-14 and beat fellow Big Ten foe Maryland 42-28. Who has been leading the charge for the Hoosiers this year? Senior QB Curtis Roke has been on fire. His 1,372 passing yards are 13th best in the country. His 73.2% completion percentage is 6th best in the country. And he has 11 passing TDs, 2 rushing TDs, and only 2 picks. He has a passer rating of 189.4, 7th best in the nation. Overall, offensively, the Hoosiers have had 48.8 points per game, which is 3rd best in the country. And their total offense has been 9th best in the country. On the other side of the ball, the Hoosiers have had the 13th best scoring defense in the nation in terms of opponent points per game. They've had the 12th best rushing D in the nation and the 8th best total defense. Based on the numbers so far, Indiana definitely looks like a dominant team under Roke and Cagnetti, who is a proven winner. In terms of the remaining schedule, they'll have some tests to see if they are contenders or pretenders. Fellow Shocker team Nebraska on October 19th at home, hosting number 10 Michigan on November 9th, and traveling to number 3 Ohio State November 23rd. They definitely have what it takes to beat Nebraska. Don't know about Ohio State or Michigan because I don't think they've proven that they can beat blue bloods like OSU or Michigan, not with their strength of schedule so far. So I can see them going 10-2 and going to a really good bowl game with a top 15 or top 20 finish. It is finally prime time in Boulder. After going 4-8 in 2021, an abysmal 1-11 in 2022, and 4-8 in Coach Prime's first year and the Pac-12's last year, the Buffs in 5 games have matched or surpassed their win totals for the last 3 years with a blazing 4-1 start. So far this year, Colorado beat elite FCS school North Dakota State. And yes, it is an FCS school, but as James Madison has shown, elite FCS schools have an ability to compete at an FBS level. They then lost a fringe top 25 team, Nebraska, 28-10, won against Colorado State 28-9, and won 38-31 against Baylor thanks to a late Hail Mary. And Baylor has not had a winning season since 2021, when they actually finished 6th overall and won the Sugar Bowl over Ole Miss. But last year, the Bears went 3-9. Then they dominated UCF 48-20, who has made 3 straight bowls and has had 2 9-win seasons in those 3 winning seasons. They also played the Knights in the Bounce House, which is an extremely tough place to play. Some key players: Shador Sanders, senior, 1630 passing yards, 6th in the country, 70.1% completion, 14th in the country, 14 TDs, 4th in the country, and only 3 interceptions. Then we got Travis Hunter, Jr., who has played on both sides of the ball, 561 receiving yards, 5th in the country, with 6 touchdowns, 3rd in the nation. He has had, on defense, 2 interceptions and 3 passes defended. Safety Kamron Simon Craig has had 30 solo tackles, which is tied for 5th best in the country. Overall, the rest of the way, they have number 20 KSU, who is 4-1. They beat Arizona 31-7, and number 20 Oak State 42-21. They have Arizona, who's 3-1. Number 18 Utah is 4-1, and Oklahoma State, who's 3-2. Oklahoma State was just in the rankings last week. Arizona is a fringe top 25. That was also in the rankings not too long ago and was ranked when KSU beat them. And then they're facing two teams who are right now in the rankings in KSU and Utah. It's a very challenging schedule. And as they proved against Nebraska, Colorado struggles when playing those really elite ranked teams or fringe top 25 teams. I think they win every game but Utah, Oak State, and KSU finish 8-4 and get their first bowl game since 2020. Ever since 2018, Navy has had 5 losing seasons and 4 or less wins in 4 of those 5 years. Well, this year, the midshipmen are off to a 4-0 start. So far, they've beaten FCS school Bucknell 49-21. They won 38-11 over fellow AAC school Temple, and their biggest win was 56-44 over Memphis, who finished 10-3 last year and was picked to be first in the American, while Navy was picked to finish 11th. Then last year, they beat UAB 41-18. Some key players: QB Blake Horvath, 68.2% completion percentage, 637 passing yards, 7 TDs, 1 interception, 450 rushing yards, 9.6 yards per carry, and 8 rushing touchdowns. Tied for 7th in the nation, and with Jalen Moreau for total touchdowns. Remaining schedule, biggest games left are Tulane, Army, and Notre Dame. Right now, it seems for Navy that their quarterback is their whole offense, and you won't be able to beat Notre Dame like that, or Tulane, who had 11 wins last year and beat USC in the Cotton Bowl 2 years ago, or even Army, who is off to a solid start as well this year. Army has more than their quarterback contributing in the run game. Running back Noah Short has had 344 yards, 13.8 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Kane Udo, running back, has 297 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 5.8 yards per carry. Army has the number 1 rushing offense in the entire country and the number 12 total defense. So not only is Army better at Navy at their own game, which is running, they also have a much better defense. So I'm picking Army in the Army-Navy game. That's going to do it for some surprise teams. So ND, as they learn against NIU, take no team lightly. That back to you guys in the studio.
Well, thank you, Kian. Certainly a lot to look for college football as we move into October. Season Notre Dame returns next week, home against Stanford at Notre Dame Stadium. We'll have a full preview show on Shamrock Sports for that one. Compton's calling our name, my friend, and I've got a date with Jacob Irons on the mini golf course. So we got some big weekend plans to start to get in order. But hey, to tune into the Notre Dame hockey here. Ryan over on WVFI, Notre Dame Radio Network as well. We'll have the call. It's going to be a great one, and just feels good to have it back.
Feels good to have hockey back. It's not really, truly the beginning of the year, I think, for the two of us until hockey starts again. And glad to be back. Certainly.
So that'll do it. We can bring out the Zamboni now for the show here on Shamrock Sports. For Ryan Murphy, Chris Daly, Caitlin Klein, Kian Backos, and everybody who helped to make today's show a possibility, we thank you, and we thank you as well. Next week when we'll preview Stanford. Have a good one.